Good morning, everyone. I want to thank everyone who tuned in for our first virtual signing of the weekend last night with Dynamite Danny Moe. We are back tomorrow with Francine and Todd Gordon, two extreme legends, and we are back with not only someone that's an extreme legend, not only someone that you've seen throughout the territories, throughout the world, WCW, WWE. You've seen him as a franchise, as a dynamic dude, as a former dean, but he's been well known for the last 40 years. Is your 40-year anniversary coming up, Shane?
No, 42nd.
42nd year coming up in the pro wrestling business. That's the franchise. Shane Douglas returns for another virtual signing. Shane, always a pleasure to work with you and spend some time with you.
By the way, this is the very first virtual I've ever done in Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah, right. That'd be great. My first time back in quite a few years, so it's good to be back. It's great to be back with Shane. Last time we had Shane, it was you and Francine up in New England.
Yes.
And Shane, I'm just gonna move this table up a little. And like and share out, guys. We'll be on for the next hour, 25 minutes or so. We're going to go over, we got some great photo options from Shane. Now, maybe, Shane, you could say a few words about each of the photos. We've got photos throughout your career. Our number one photo right here. When you see this photo, Shane, what do you think of that?
I think I was 3 years old in this one. This was a 1990-91 WWF promo picture. What's notable about this picture, I think, if it were in color, is that the tights that I'm wearing are, I guess you call them coral, like a pinkish, orangish color. Before I started wearing the black and gold routinely, again for Pittsburgh, here in the Steeler country. But yeah, this goes back to 1991, and the crazy part about this picture is, everybody's heard me talk about things that happened there in 2005 and my distaste for how they were treating people. In that trip, when that picture was taken, I can honestly say it was a very fruitful time. I had great talent to work with. Buddy Rose,
right?
Buddy Rose, yeah, I had Buddy laying down. My Buddy Rose, Haku, of course, Paul Roma, Hercules. I mean, there were just a dressing room full of guys really, really ready to go and work their butts off. And I look back fondly to my 1991 run in WWF. Whenever I left, I had to go back to teaching, or went to my first job as a teacher, because in December of that year, 91, my father had come down with a stage 4 COPD and obviously couldn't live alone. And I went and talked to Vince. Niagara Falls was the last time that I worked for WWF then. And I was really nervous. I enjoyed my run there. I couldn't complain if I wanted to. The paychecks had been great. And I went and talked to Vince, and I was very trepidatious about, telling him I had to leave. And when I did, he looked at me and he said, "Hey, your family comes first. You've been a great employee. The door's open. You can welcome back anytime you want." And so when I did go back there later, that all those words were in the back of my head, that I'd been a good employee, that or contractee, I should say, subcontractee, and the money was good. There was really no reason for me to have any concern about going up there in 95. But that I look back at that when I see that picture, what always reminds me of are those guys that I had the opportunity to work with who were so fantastic. Buddy Rose was just a machine in the ring when he wanted to be, and which is pretty much every night. Just a really night off. You sort of got struck with the idea that there were so many talented people. Black Bart was there then. That you had these guys to work with, and they were so damn good at what we do. You knew you could learn a lot, but also it was fun. We were kids that were young, late 20s, maybe 30 years old there. I actually 28 now that I think about the year when I was there, and had all those amazing talent to work with. It was a very good relationship business-wise, professionally. And like I said, completely disarmed me for my next venture up there in 95.
And coming up now, that's, of course, our Shane number one option. Number two, we've got the Pittsburgh colors.
Finally.
A little Eastern Championship Wrestling. I think that's pretty extreme, but there's our number two photo.
Yeah, this is just the thing to point out, I'm sure most of the hardcore fans know, the ECW belt, of course, been Eastern Championship Wrestling then. We were not calling it a world title. It was a regional title. We were calling it the heavyweight title. because that would come when an audacious act would happen a few months later with the throwing down the NWA belt. But the black and gold, you can see the franchise is now starting to morph into the franchise that the franchise would become. That character, the black and gold representing Pittsburgh. By the way, I'm not from Pittsburgh. I'm from a little town called New Brighton, Pennsylvania, which is a very dinky little place. Friends at home go, why did you ever say New Brighton? Because nobody would know where the hell New Brighton was. But so that's from 93-ish, I believe, in ECW, maybe early 94.
Now, you brought up an audacious act. Would this be the audacious act?
That would be it.
This is our number 3 photo option, one of the most infamous nights in pro wrestling history, a very memorable night for a variety of reasons. Unbelievable, heartfelt promo, a big moment. Talk about that night as briefly as you can, Shane. That's what your big night was.
We'd known about the tournament. Eastern Championship Wrestling was a signature to the NWA. We were umbrellaed under the NWA at that time. Paul and Todd, and I were the only 3 that I'm aware of that knew about this angle. And what I loved about ECW and the way that Paul booked, Paul never came to you and said, okay, here's what we're doing. You're going to go out and do this and you're going to throw the belt down. He would give me the options and say, okay, we can keep the belt and then we'll stay with the NWA, or you can do this and throw it down. I think Paul knew my personality would probably more gravitate towards, beefing up ECW into something more as opposed to becoming a sublet of some other promotion. But either way, it was never dictated to me, and as everything prior in the business had been. And so that, for me, just was liberating, and as an artist, being able to go to the ring and do what you want to do in the ring and, plant seeds that you want to plant, avoid things you don't want to do. You could steer those angles somewhat, which gave you a little bit of ownership over them. And of course, that makes you more bought in when you feel like some proprietary authority over that angle. You just work hard a little harder for it. You think a little bit deeper about it because you want to make sure you deliver. And that's that time frame. That would be August 24th, I believe.
I believe it might be the 27th.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always get that wrong on the date, but of course, this is after the 3rd match. I had just finished off, I think, 30-something minutes with Scorpio. And Scorpio, if you're out there, for the fans that give me the credit, give the credit to Scorpio, because I was blown sky high at that time. The room was hotter than hell, hot August night in Philly, and had wrestled both Dean Malenko and Taz prior to that. And then, of course, Scorp and I went in, and Scorp, just the ever pro that he is, got me and that match over like gangbusters, which set up for the promo to make sense after. Crazy
to think, by the way, that's over 30 years ago now. Crazy to think. This is slightly longer than that, because that's our number 4 photo.
Wow. Yeah, now a little bit of history to this. This ring jacket was Dominic DeNucci's ring jacket. It was the first ring jacket I ever had. He gave me this one and a black one that had, I think, little sequin stars on it. Both of them disappeared in locker rooms back around that time. And, it's not like you can go down to the local store and go to Walmart and pick up another ring jacket or robe, right? So you had to have the stuff made. This is probably mid 84, 85, 86 in that range somewhere, I'm guessing. But here I was 1.5 years old.
Now that's our number 4 option. Our number 5 option, let's have you talk about this one, Shay. I love that photo. So many colors going on. Yeah. 1989. And let's talk about the dynamic and the dudes. The two most popular words, right?
Yes. Well, first of all, talking about the gimmick itself. Eddie Gilbert had been telling me and Johnny, after watching us work, just as a team, that we were heels, that he wanted to turn us heels. And I think that would have worked. The name, the Dynamic Dudes, that had come from a commission that Jim Hurd, Jim Hurd, had spent a lot of money to find out what were the big words and phrases, slang that was being used in California that year. And the top 2 on the list were Dynamic and Dude. So Jim Hurd, in his infinite Pizza Hut wisdom, decided to put the number 1 and 2 words together to call us the Dynamic Dudes. We had learned about this the night after the Music City Showdown, where Terry Funk had power drove Flair through the table. We had debuted as Johnny and Shane, the next of New Generation, against the Samoan SWAT team.
Yeah, big win too.
Yes, big win. So the next morning, we're in the hotel van, going to courtesy van, going to the airport, and Eddie's sitting in the front. And he goes, "Well, did you guys hear your new name yet?" And he said, I started laughing, and I knew Eddie a lot better than Johnny did at the time because Eddie gave him my break in UWF. Eddie had a very dry sense of humor. As I'm laughing at the name, like, yeah, sure, Dynamic Dudes, he turns around and gives me that dead set look, and I knew he was serious. I said, "He's telling me you're ripping." And, of course, that whole thing would go on. It didn't work long term because there was, again, at the time, the politics, the booking committee, and we weren't aligned with anybody on the booking committee, but we were getting heat in the company because the guy that was the head of merchandising, his name was popping right here in a second. We used to take, Johnny thinks this stuff up, right? Wine and dine and take him out. And he was telling us the only person that was outselling us at that time was Sting. And we were hands down outselling everybody else on the merchandise, mostly because in 89, 88, 89, all those fluorescent colors were in. And we were a new young team, young baby faces that were coming up. And then that whole name thing just sort of derailed it and made it difficult to even get over. Ironic that, that in Philadelphia, which was, as any fans from Philly know, that's not the home for the baby face. And we used to have a lot of fun going. It was sort of ironic to me that I would later make my bones in Philadelphia with ECW. But people always bring up the Dynamic Dudes, I guess, in a condescending way. And I understand, like, based on what they did with the team. But for me and for Johnny, this was the first time in wrestling that we actually made money. We were making, I think, $2,500 a week. Young kids, we were all millionaires. But it was the first time we didn't have to worry about, can we stay at this hotel or that little rat place down the street, or can we get a Cadillac as opposed to a mini car? Can we eat steak tonight instead of peanut butter sandwiches? So the Dynamic Dudes thing for Johnny and I was a big boon, at least as far as the pocketbook went. And I look back at that fondly. It was we were young kids in the business coming up. It sure as hell didn't seem like work. It, for us, was imagine like your whatever your dream is, and you're out with your buddies that have the same dream and run up and down the roads and just having a blast 24 hours a day. It certainly wasn't work. It didn't seem like it at the time. So a lot of fun members at that time.
Now, once again, that's our number 5, and you can place your orders in the comments. Our number 6 right here, WCW, a little later than that, a few years later.
This is WCW. This would have been around the time they split me and Johnny up. I had been off. I had to have a small knee surgery. We were working in, I want to say Southern West, Bluefield, West Virginia, I believe. And the smaller arena, they had moved the mats in on the floor. So instead of like 3 feet of mats, 4 feet of mats, there were like 2 feet of mats. And back then, I used to do a spot where Bobby Eaton would get knocked out to the floor. Stan would come in and get on me, and Irish whip me to the turnbuckle on the same side that Bobby was, and I would vault to the top rope and cross Bobby to the floor on Bobby. On this particular night, I was unaware that the mats had been moved in, and so my knee pad had slid down. When I came down and Bobby grabbed me, my knee got jammed into the concrete. I had blood clots in my knee being removed. But that would have been like 89, 90 time frame in WCW. And again, by this time, we were making money on a weekly basis with guaranteed contracts. And so a lot less pressure as to like how it used to be. Hold your breath when the check comes. But right at this time is when they split me off, and they were telling me as I was off in the month with that surgery that they were going to split me and Johnny up, and they were going to give me a big push singles. And that is a whole other tale.
And we got another franchise as our number 7.
Yeah, now this picture actually is a little bit of crossover here. So this is Eastern Championship Wrestling again. This ring jacket that you're looking at had a pair of pants that mimicked it. It was made by the WWF seamstresses. And it was at the time that Vince was wanting me. He wanted to try to see if he could make me into a rock star. I had dabbled playing the bass whenever I was younger, writing lyrics and things, and Jimmy Hart had written 3 songs. One was called Rockin' Down the Halls, the other was called American Girls, and I forget for the life of me, I have to ask Jimmy next time I saw him, see him. But he came to Pittsburgh Civic Arena. We're wrestling in Pittsburgh that night, and I went up early because Jimmy had, boombox with 3 versions of that music: a pop version, a rock version, and a metal version, and tested my voice and said that I fell more into that rock range. And so the one song, American Girl, I still remember the first line of the lyrics. The first line was, me and my boys are going rocking down the halls. Teacher's upset because we're skipping study hall. And then went into the refrain of, oh, American Girls. So that song would later become, I think,
American Males.
American Males.
Wow,
yes.
that's,
So,
you said it.
So, yeah, it's, again, that was made, ironic, because that outfit was made, he wanted to make sort of like a John Bon Jovi type character, and this is when Young Guns, the movie, the trilogy, I think it was, or at least 2, that came out. And so that was in that vein of why those girls had made that outfit like that. They were all tearaway and everything. So that's a WWF made outfit being used at ECW early on.
Now, as said a bit earlier, we've got Francine tomorrow with Todd Gordon. Of course, Francine was a big part of the franchise's career during his time at ECW, and we've got some great photo options. So this is our duel number 1. So when you see that, I think that's the incarnation of the triple threat everyone kind of thinks of. Yeah. But if you could talk about each photo, that's our duel number 1, guys.
Yeah, these pictures were taken in Poughkeepsie, New York. Taz had hired a photographer and the backgrounds and everything. So with all these pictures, there's one or two of me with the belt. But then we took this group photo also. This incarnation, the other incarnations were very talented. The problem was the first incarnation being Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, and I. There are only 3 pictures that I know of in existence of the 3 of us together. They had left shortly after putting it together. Every great wrestling company I ever watched always had a heel stable, whether it was House of Humperdinck or
Four Horsemen.
On and on. And ECW didn't have that yet. And so I came up with the idea of the triple threat. And then, of course, after they left, Chris Candido and Brian Lee, who I just saw for the first time in like 20 years.
How's he doing? I heard, is he? Okay.
Doing good. Tell him they said hello.
Great.
And it was good to see him, because he just up and disappeared. And then Bam Bam fell in. And both Bam Bam and Chris Candido were such accomplished talent in our business. Chris, I was always jealous of, because Chris could wake up from a coma and go to the ring and have a 5-star match. It was just like breathing to him. And Bammer, I mean, my God, you go back and watch. If you want to ever get a testament outside of ECW of how great Bam Bam Scott Bigelow was, watch his match at WrestleMania with Lawrence Taylor. Understanding that Lawrence, great athlete, that doesn't have a thing to do with wrestling. And that he was able to pull out a decent match out of that. On that grand stage, I would have been very nervous even trying to pull that off at that stage in my career. Scott was a total pro and really completed it. We never had that monster guy, even though Brian was a little bigger, but that monster like Bammer that could move around so well. It really augmented, I think, the 4 of us together. And Paul also, I think the reason that particular incarnation has so much oomph behind it is because initially, to get that over, I had told Paul, you have to legitimize it. You can't just say, hey, there's a stable and they're bad guys and whatever. And for a brief period, we held all the belts. The television title, the world title, the tag team titles, and for more than just a cup of coffee. And that really legitimized the triple threat. Back to Franny real quick, because of course she's in that picture too. You mentioned it earlier. Franny she'd been in the business for literally a cup of coffee at that point. And I often try and put myself in, reverse it. And I think at that stage of my career, months in the business, being put with a world heavyweight champion and expected to go out there and be an equal to that over-the-top character of the franchise. Franny did that in spades. She was a great student. She listened, and every night in the car, if Damien, our driver and friend, was still here, he'd be able to verify this. The entire way back to the hotel, we would be going over that match tonight. Things that she did right, things that she did wrong, why they were right or why they were wrong. Always ask perfect questions, inquiring, digging deeper on those things. You could tell that Franny was really committed to the idea of not only just getting that character in the franchise over, but getting that over from promotion for ECW. And she will always be, like I was telling Nick before we started, my legacy in the business is written in stone. There's no changing it now, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished. But Franny really gave me a lot of more weapons to use while I was out there. And now, if she doesn't pay that back and give you that kind of compliment tomorrow, you got fired.
I will. I'll text you tomorrow when I tell her how much you just put her over.
Yeah, she was great. She was great.
Our duel number 1. Our duel number 2 is a fantastic edit.
Okay, it was, the best part of this is I still get questions from fans. They'll say, hey, your ex-wife and blah, 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 blah. And I'll say to them, how do you know my ex-wife? You're the teacher from this school district. Hey, Francine's a teacher? I'm like, no, Francine and I were never married. I know that I wouldn't have married her, but I was already married when we got put together. For us, we've both spoken about this ad nauseum publicly, but for me, I'm, not that I wouldn't have wished, back then, I mean, we were young and no connections, whatever, but, and let's face it, Franny was and is smoking hot, right? But it was a professional relationship. And I'm glad it was, because I think now it would be awkward. And if any of you fans have ever been to any place where we're together signing, especially we have Sandman there, right? Sandman with the guy with the lampshade on, drawing everybody in. We laugh like 15-year-old kids till our bellies hurt. And I relish that opportunity that we still have those friendships, that we still get to be able to do that. And that's because of you fans. And so thank you for that, because we have a blast every time we go out.
Our number 3, right here. Check that out.
Yeah, Poughkeepsie, New York, that's in background.
Same as the number 1, right?
Yes. Yep, that was it. And there were a bunch of these photos, like with me, the title, me smiling, us together, the triple threat. There were a bunch. Tannis forgot to tell them to bring 2 backdrops.
Yeah, that's how you're able to tell the same photo shoot. This is our duel number 4, even though Shane's let you know you're number 1.
Yeah, hey, you're number 1 out there. It's we used to jokingly tell the fans, I kissed my mother with a smile too. So it's
number 4, and then also the duel number 5 from the East of Maria. Bob Ortiz back there.
Oh, Bob, great.
That's a great action shot. Probably from our buddy George.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm sure. Now, here's the thing, like, I'm going to try to put Bobby over and Lex, Bob and Lex Ortiz. Incredible human beings. For us, in ECW at this time, the shows, as you were at the shows, you remember they were long-ass shows. We would typically get out when there were no restaurants or even fast food open. And Bob and Lex would bring out of their own pockets water for the boys, food for the boys, snacks for the boys.
Wow.
It just really went above and beyond. And it was really that kind of stuff that started forging us into sort of a family. Mm-hmm. We were all there for each other, and I didn't mean there weren't egos bumping into each other, but guys like Bob and Lex and a slew of others in the back that sort of made it feel like it was a family atmosphere. And so they're part of the team.
So those are your options, of course, and we'll have Francine finish them off on Saturday night. Forever Hardcore DVD coming up. That was a fantastic documentary.
That one, actually, a couple of things comical about this one. Obviously, I was the guy that wrote most of the questions. I was the guy that, Jeremy Boras and I were the two that put this together. He did all the editing work and everything. But the questions were 95% from me. He'd actually done 2 rounds of questions.
Okay.
And when he brought the raw footage from the first round, I had follow-up questions that would delve into that deeper. Watch the credits at the end. And somebody forgot to get mentioned in the end of it. But what I'm proud of is the fact that for 3 months after this was released, for 3 months this topped all the WWF DVD sales at the time. So pretty hard to say, imagine that a couple of guys put a DVD out the top down,
Well, what I remember, and we'll have you sign on the inside, Shane, what I remember about this is there was the big debut at the ECW Arena. I remember being in attendance for it. Q&A, you were there. The debut of the documentary was really...
Is that right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Now we're talking, that's got to be 12, 13 years ago now.
Longer now.
Yeah, it might be.
Because the Forever Hardcore, the DVD, it was Hardcore Homecoming.
Yes.
That a lot of the questions were fed off of. And that always stands out in my head. Not just because it was the first ECW reunion that did so well. We sold it out in half an hour, 36 minutes, something like that. Candido, of course, was not there because he had died a few months earlier. And there was a gaping hole in the show that night because it was a great atmosphere in the ECW arena. But it was notable because we had lost so many guys even at that point. Chris had just been the most recent. And it just sort of, I wish I could say that it stopped then, but it hasn't. And, as you guys know in this business is really hard. It's hard on marriages. It's hard on parents and kids' relationships. When you sign up for this business, especially where we came from prior to the business becoming this juggernaut it had become, in the old school wrestling, you were married to the business. You were on the road 365, a couple days here and there off. But things I can remember, Dr. Death Steve Williams, unable to go to his own father's funeral because he had to defend the title that day. So you can imagine how that really decimates marriages and relationships in our family. And I watch every other sport, and I think the time has come for, not to get on my soapbox here, but the time has come for us to start to inquire of our business. Why would Sabu not have some basic safety net, or James Harris, Kamala, other guys like that? Why do we allow this to continue in our business when it's really easy to correct it? You fans out there will correct it when you correct it with your money. When you start boycotting something, or you make even just a small dent, that's when they'll pay attention. Until that time comes, they will just keep doing what they're doing because they're still making the money and they're still able to do what they can do, and there's no downside to it. We have to demand better of our business. The stuff I saw in the accusations of the sex trafficking stuff in WWF, I had seen a lot of other weird, nasty stuff going on when I was up there the last time. We, as the fans of this business, I'm a mark for the business, or I would have been in it. We must demand better of our business. We must demand better.
Well said, Shane. We got a couple of hardcore history books that are coming up. Now,
there you go.
The request on this is, can Shane sign the inside cover? But we were the island of misfit toys.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So right here, and of course, why don't you talk about that island, because that is such a great quote, and that is what made ECW unique. The company will never be like that again.
Here or here?
When he says inside cover, I think there. Yeah.
I had coined the phrase "the island of misfit toys" because we didn't fit in anywhere else. If you go back and look at that time, a guy with blonde hair and blue eyes had to be a babyface, right? He's a good-looking guy. And if you were a character like Raven, well, you had to be, this or that. Sabu wasn't big enough. Taz wasn't tall enough. Shane was a white meat babyface. There were all these backhanded euphemisms being used. Anything else on it? Or?
Oh, yeah, we were the island of misfit toys.
That the one commonality that we all had was we had all been sort of like talked down to in that way. Mm-hmm. And, we all knew we had more to offer. We just didn't know where we could release it, how we would release it. And suddenly this crazy place called Eastern Championship Wrestling, and later the Extreme Championship Wrestling, pops up. And if you don't think that Raven had a belly full of piss and vinegar, if you don't think that Sabu had heard he ain't big enough too many times, if you don't think the franchise had bile coming out of my ears, being going, he's just a white meat baby face. We knew we had a lot more to show and offer, and that place afforded us the perfect opportunity to do it. And I think it allowed Paul to step back and not have to micromanage, because every one of us was out to prove something. And it was noteworthy, I think, to add in this, the competition factor, that it was never, I want to make Sabu look bad, or I want to make Sandman look bad, or Tommy Dreamer, or whoever. I wanted to make damn sure the franchise looked better than them. And that drove them to want to look better than the franchise. It's that kind of friendly competition where we were all supporting each other, only in ECW. Never in independent, never in WCW, NWA, WWF, UWF, Continental, did I ever hear or see wrestlers, as you would come in from the ring, giving you a standing ovation or applause. And that just sort of fed into the whole thing, like I said earlier, with the family aspect and the camaraderie that was there. We were all trying to nose each other out. We all had egos, but it was all for the betterment of the product at the end of the night, for the fans to ultimately walk out of that building and have their wrestling appetite satiated.
Well said. And Anthony, we're getting signed. ECW, we were the island of Misfit Toys.
There you go, bud.
Anthony, check that out.
There you go. And it's the first time I've ever been asked to write that, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
We're breaking ground here.
It's a lot of there. So.
Yes. I'm going to move this, Anthony. Now, if ECW was the island of Misfit Toys, what would WCW have been?
The sinking island.
I was going to say Toys R Us on steroids,
Yes.
or Toys R Us. The Superstars Toys R Us.
In my estimation,
Flash Sharpie actually for that one.
The shame to me of WCW was I thought we had a much more talented dressing room. That's not a slight to the WWF locker room. We had an extremely accomplished dressing room. And I think had it incorporated any of that ECW mindset, that FTW mindset, I think they could have very easily competed again against WWF. But when it became, I ain't going to lose to him, I'm not going to lose to her, she can't beat him, when it became that, that cancer has been seen over and over again in this business, and it is always fatal. I've never seen a case where it didn't kill the host. So, just a bit of embarrassment also about our business. I demand that our business do better. Full disclosure, when I beat somebody, I'm not really beating them, and when they beat me, they're not really beating me. We are performing out there. The best of us do it in a way that makes you believe that we're beating each other, and we're not really doing that. It's to give you fans your money's worth, to forget about that job, that bad relationship, that neighbor that drives you crazy or whatever, to allow you to blow that stuff off. And I think ECW did successfully do that during that time. I think the other companies could have learned a lot more from ECW, as opposed to just seeing it as the Blood and Guts Company or the Bingo Hall Company or the small pond, as Vince used to like to call it. That small pond that he tried to mimic. I hope you fans, I'll cap it off with this, understand that when we hear that chant today, a quarter century after the demise of ECW.
Wow, crazy to think.
It melts our brains, our chests beat out with pride, because it clearly shows that we did something right in that building. For those people like Vince that saw it as just a can of garbage, I never did that. I'm sure somewhere I did once or twice, but that wasn't my shtick. Francine didn't do it, Taz didn't do it, Tommy didn't do it. Only Sandman was swinging a cane. The chair shots and stuff, they became onerous, but there was a reason for all of that. If you just saw the blood and guts and just saw the can of garbage, or New Jack jumping off of the Empire State Building, Sabu going on homicidal, suicidal, genocidal dives, that was the salt and pepper on the steak. The steak itself was the story that was going in. And I think so many people, not the fans, but so many people in our business, like Vince, would pick my brain every time I saw him up there in 95. Never quite could grasp that. It was just the Blood and Guts Company, the Bingo Hall Company, the small pond, the minor leagues, the on and on and on condescension of it. Again, the one that he tried to mimic. So you fans are responsible for all that. We love you for it. Thank you.
We're talking ECW. The show that I think that, even as a fan at that time, I remember everyone getting behind. The Bare Legal, the first show on pay-per-view, it had been teased, talked about, and then finally happened. It felt like, it's like the bands that the fans like Metallica before they popped. Being an ECW fan when they got on pay-per-view, it felt like that. It was like, it felt different than the WCW pay-per-view. It's like that home team that, that made it. Can you sign that here? This is for our buddy Chris. But can you also talk about, Barely Legal?
Sure.
God, what was it like being there that night?
Well, it was a lot of pressure. Keep in mind, a lot of the talent on that roster had never been on paper.
Yeah, it's only you, Raven, and Funk, really, right?
Yeah, was Ben? Yeah, was Ben there yet or no?
I don't know. I don't think he was there.
Yeah, so there were very few guys that were on. Francine was nervous as all get out. I've never seen him that nervous before or since. Anthony, Pitbull too, super duper, like literally sweating bullets. And I kept trying to calm them down, saying, like, it's just, you've done this 1,000 times. Don't worry about the cameras. Go and have the match. But we had known, like, if you go back and think about that 93, 4, into 95 range, the promos that I was saying about the marquee outside saying wrestling is a sport, it's a shoot, it's a goddamn shoot. We also knew that this was, as I would call it then, the nirvana. In wrestling, if you're going to be successful, you must be on pay-per-view, and that one busted the damn wide open for us.
Chris, we'll be getting Todd Gordon and Francine on that for you as well. And in perfect ECW fashion, right? Didn't the something blue, right, towards the end of the, to where it was only a few seconds before this feed would have been cut,
yes,
and everything got through in time.
So typical of ECW. I'm going to point something out here also. I think this is it. Yeah. This, as a lot of the magazine articles, this program, I wrote, if not all of it, about 90% of it.
Really?
Yeah. And the hard part for me was to keep coming up with adjectives and, ways to put people over without sounding like the same person and trying to say it in a way that didn't sound like Shane Douglas. But, understand that ECW at that time, well, for the duration, there was no staff. We didn't have an office per se that you can call and talk to the receptionist and say, hey, we want to order some T-shirts. That was pretty much done. Each of us were doing things behind the scenes. Bubba was working on promotions, as I was. Taz was working with Tommy on merchandising. It really was a pitching. We were all pitching in to get stuff done because if we were going to do this, if we were going to build this promotion into what it became, somebody had to do it. A program ain't going to write itself. A T-shirt's not going to design itself. And so there were everybody, not every single person, but especially upper tier talent that was in ECW, we were all wearing multiple hats because we had to. And again, I think it's part of what made it so much fun was that we were at the steering wheel of this gigantic rig called ECW.
I think, and I forgot who it was that said it, but it was the easiest way to sum up a team environment. It's like you could have people from all different backgrounds, all different beliefs, but if everyone on a team has one common goal, and that's ECW's definition of that. Everyone had that one common goal. They wanted to see this ship, sail as far as it could. Yeah. And that does not happen in wrestling a lot at all.
I've seen this number. I don't know if this number has been verified, but I heard that during the near 7-year run of ECW, that the total amount spent was $8.4 million.
That's it, really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
If you compare that, at the time that I heard that, I went and researched. It was hard to find, exactly apples to apples to compare, but WCW and WWF both during that same time frame had spent well in excess of $450 million. So the parts we were getting from those two companies combined nearly $1 billion, and then that little engine that could, ECW at $8.4 million. One of those seems like a real bargain comparatively. And also, there's one last piece about this popped into my head. As we go out and do these signings, we oftentimes see like that B-rolling ECW footage. And I don't typically get a chance to watch that very often. I can't remember the last time I pulled anything up from ECW and watched it at home. Because I was so busy. But when I watch the ECW footage today, and I also see like WWF footage or WCW footage or NWA footage, they all look very dated to that time frame. ECW looks like it was filmed last night in some, underground fight club. there was a method to the madness, and that madness was driven by the fact that we didn't have $400 million to say, let's go buy the best lighting or whatever. But somehow, some way, Ronnie and Charlie, our production staff, the entire production staff, and Paul were able to put that footage together in a way that still looks contemporary, still looks timely, and still looks crisp today. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of whenever I watch it. It does not feel dated.
Now, you, of course, you had a bunch of valets throughout your career. You know, we talked about Francine.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about Sherri Martel before that. You know, I would imagine, you know, with her experience, you know, you being, you know, on the other side of the road, heel, you know, for the first time, you know, probably memorable for you, helpful for you. And talk about Sherri if you could, because you guys were together for a good amount of time, but it was before it was national.
Yeah. First of all, Sherri was phenomenal. Sweetheart of a person, damn good at what we do. I've always said, like, prior to that, and I take flack for this, but it's my personal belief. I've never been, like, knocked out by women's wrestling. I do see more today that are working harder at it. But even back then, Sherri and Medusa, they wrestled like guys.
Yeah.
They didn't do the, you know, gut wrench for body slam or like the lower drop kicks or whatever. They were both damn tough in the ring. And then later, Jazz. When Jazz came to ECW, I just told the story last night to a friend of mine. We wrestled in Birmingham one time that I recall, ECW. Horrible weather coming in that day. The flights were all delayed. So we couldn't we would do like tryouts before the show. Of course, we couldn't then because we had to get the show going. And then afterwards, we were in Battle Auditorium, me, Taz, Candido, Tammy, Franny, Bubba, Devon. There were a whole bunch of us sitting up there. And they're doing the tryouts. And I didn't have my glasses on. You know, so I'm talking with them, and somebody's in the ring. I said, hey, who's the black guy in the ring? He's damn good. And they started laughing. And I said, you know, the guy in the ring, he's really watching. He's tight. And they keep laughing. And finally, Dad or somebody, that's a chick. What the hell it is? I said, in the ring right now. And I got so pissed off. I walked down. I was going to prove to this is a guy. And it was Jazz. And my God, did she... First of all, anybody that knows Jazz, she's just a sweetheart of a person. But my God, tougher than nails in that ring. And I think people like her and Sherri and Medusa and others I'm sure I'm being remiss on, started, you know, bringing that sort of oomph factor into women's wrestling. And if you want to know how tough Sherri Martel was, and all three of them, there was the incident early on in Eastern Championship Wrestling where we did the 60-minute match, the three-way dance. And afterwards, we were at the Marriott, the old Marriott, right off the airport, Philadelphia Airport grounds. 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, we're in one of the rooms shooting this promo. Terry, of course, still had the belt, and I bust in on it, and we get into, you know, the verbal confrontation, and then he smacks me, and we go at each other, and there's a pull apart. Now, a pull apart, for the workers out there know that, like, you don't shoot that, like, you work it, right? And somebody has me clamped. I don't know who these two people are, but they're in vice grips. I can't get loose. And I'm constantly, you know, get back up, get back into this. And when I later watched the playback, it was Sherri Martel. Sherri had scissored me, and I mean, I could not get away from her. Tougher than nails inside that ring, but outside the ring, just the sweetest girl you'd like to be around. I mean, she's just a loving, caring person, and she was so damn good at what we do. For, like you said a second ago, Nick, for me, just becoming a heel, not really knowing what I was doing, having her out there was an invaluable resource for me. The night that we did that three-way dance, at the very end of it, if you watch closely, I roll onto the bottom rope hard camera side, and I'm blown sky high. I was the only guy that done the 60 minutes. We had the 15-minute start with me and Sabu. Sabu got hurt and left. Here came Terry. Then Sabu came back out. And so they did 45 each, and I'd done the 60. I was blown sky high, and I'm laying there, and Sherri is right there next to me. And she goes, oh my God, look. And I turned my head, and the fans were giving us a standing ovation. I had never been in a three-way dance. I'd never seen a three-way dance at that point. And to be honest with you, me and Sabu were just sort of hanging on for dear life, following Terry's lead. And At the moment the match ended, I thought we had really screwed it up. It didn't feel like a great match. It just didn't feel like it hit the groove. And every week, Paul would send me the raw footage from that weekend shows to help him with the booking and things. And it's like music. I can't listen to an album one time and love it or hate it. I gotta listen to it over and over and over again. By the fourth, fifth time through, I can get a feel. Either I dislike it or I love it. And the same thing with that. I kept watching the footage and watching. I couldn't tell what it was, but there was something in there that kept you captivated. Like you couldn't. It seemed all herky-jerky doing it, but watching it, it just held your attention. And I kept watching it, and I realized what it was. It was the grittiness of doing the 60 minutes. But it was also that the string that was running through that was Terry Funk. Mm-hmm. That we were both, if you remember in that match, there was a point where he was down on all fours and like running like a dog and headbutting us. And Sabu and I just see it and we just fall in line feeding it. And then, of course, the infamous three-way sleeper, where that was never spoken about before. And people always spoke and say, hey, how'd you guys set that up? And what was said about it? Who instigated it? There was no talk about that. I was down. He had gotten Sabu in the sleeper, and they're right in front of me, facing my right, camera left, and stage left. And I could see it perfectly. They're right here. They're right in the line for it. I went to hit the ropes, and most people would have thought that I was coming to clothesline, right, to knock one of them off, to knock Funk off of Sabu. And at the very last second, they'll come off the ropes. Watch closely, and you'll see both of them do this. They come down a little bit, so Terry's neck is more in line where I would come, so I wouldn't have to sort of reach up and fight around for it. They were so professional, those two guys, that they were even aware of what they were doing to help me smoothly get into this three-way sleeper. And, you know, now the iconic picture of the three heads totem pulled, it's pretty much become a standard in 3 or 4 way dances. And again, that was Funk. You know, we were following Funk's lead on that because he was the veteran, he was the legend. And I mean, I think those words get thrown around way too liberally in the business today. Legends and icons and all that. Terry Funk was the real deal.
Oh,
you know, real star.
And as a good segue, now, Shane mentioned a bunch of legends, former world champions, NWA world champions in that promo. Our friend Rich wants to know memories of working against the Hollywood Blinds and being under the tutelage of Ricky Steamboat.
Oh my God. What an incredible time.
Cameron, check that out.
You know, as you fans know, we're marks for the business or we wouldn't be in the business. I love great wrestling. I can watch great wrestling 23 and a half hours a day. Including Hogan and the WWF, all of that, just took the business to stratospheric heights no wrestler prior could ever imagine or would have ever predicted. Working with Brian and Steve, I'll try to abbreviate this as quickly as I can, but I got called to the office one day on a Saturday. The office is closed on Saturday. Was let in by security, was taken up to the WCW office, and Bill Watts is out on the balcony watering the city, and his briefcase is sitting on his desk with a handgun right on top. And there's nobody in the building, right? It's just us. And I'm like, what? Did I do something wrong? If you got called to the office, you knew something was up. And he came walking in and he said, has anybody ever told you you're a stone cold effing heel? And I said, yeah, Eddie Gilbert told me that. He said, well, how's that turn heel on Ricky, work a program with Ricky, and then I want to put you with Brian Pillman and call you the Hollywood Blondes. And like again, for anybody in our business, who would not want to work an angle with Rick Steamboat, right? I thought about it as much as I would have loved to have done it. I didn't think the fans would buy it. He said, why not? I said, because it's still very much Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas. I hadn't gotten up to his level yet. His answer to me was he leaned back in his chair and locked his fingers behind his head, put his cowboy boots up on the desk, and sort of smirked out. I always knew you would be the one that picked it up. And then that's where he said that I'm going to put Steve Austin in there, called them the Hollywood Blondes. It was a win-win for me either way, because with Ricky, I could get to work against an incredible team like Steve and Brian, and we had some incredible matches with those guys. One thing, Brian was one of those guys, I think because of the way he had come into the world, right? The throat cancer and everything, smaller guy. He was the classic overachiever. He was going to walk around, he was 10 feet tall, even though he wasn't. But you couldn't take your eyes off of Brian. That's the thing about it. If you get into this business and you're somebody that the people can't look away from, you're going to make money and the promotion's going to make money. But Steve, 50% of that team, Steve has impeccable timing and impeccable ring positioning. So when we're playing off the cameras, it's easy to just go here and do this and do it over there and do that, turn our backs to the camera or whatever. The greats know where that camera is. And there's a match that I had on my podcast with James from England last year. I think it was last year. He had sent a match, me and Ricky against Brian and Steve, with me in red tights, with us in red tights. I don't recall ever owning a pair of red tights. So I thought he was full of it, and sure enough, he sends us one, and there it is. If you go back and watch that match, Steamboat, right? It's just perfect. Goes to a four-way at the end, does a double knockout with Brian, who knocks Brian to the apron. Steamer staggers back, and he sits his ass on the bottom rope, arms on the second rope, he's out. And Steve's coming in because Brian's going to do his jump to the top rope and into a power slam for me, and then turn my attention to Brian, to Steve. If you watch closely, Steve comes in a third of a second too soon. And, there's that positioning and everything in the ring. Brian's going to take this power slam. So Steve hooks his toe on the rope and sort of does the Wile E. Coyote dancing in one place for a second until the power slam. Then he comes through and steps right into a drop toe hold and puts his arm back like that for an arm bar. Golf clap. I mean, I get goosebumps when I see stuff like that because the greats in the business, you don't know when you're doing it, if it's going to be iconic or it's going to be great or it's going to be a remembered thing. But for those of us in the business that look at the workmanship of a spot, and you see somebody doing that, again, in that split second, he knows he's too soon, hooks his toe, does that, saves the spot, everything works perfectly. But it's just one of those things that as a performer, you sit back and go, wow.
The little things, right? Yeah.
Wow. Right? Just crazy, wow. And so because we had those guys to work with every night, again, the three of us, me, Brian, and Steve, would be following Steamboat. We would get to the building, and Steamboat would go up to whoever the agent was. And Ricky had this deadpan look, something like this. And when he did that, you knew like something pissed him off, right? One like Grizz had said, at this point, the first time in WCW and NWA history, the world title was going on in the semi-main event spot, and the tag title was going on in the main event spot because they didn't want to follow us, because Ricky would take us out there and do 50, 55, 58 minutes, and Sting and Vader were wrestling. They'd go on with their 6, 7, bam, bam, boom, 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 done, out, and the fans are ready to go, and it turned the tables on us. Now they're ready to leave. They don't care really about the semi-main at this point because they've already seen the main event. And so Steamer would take us out there. I would have had Brian and Steve would never have any clue how to do this. There'd be a whole lot of pushing and shoving and things like that before the match would start. 5, 8, 10 minutes. And as soon as Steamboat would sense that the crowd was getting, the attention was coming back, instead of doing this and getting ready to leave, now they're starting to lean in a little bit and pay attention. You'd hear Steamer go, ring the bell, start the match. He would always, and he had this pageantry that he would do every night, because we didn't do the same match ever 2 nights in a row. He would put a chew in, get a cup of coffee, he had a styrofoam cup to spit, and a styrofoam cup of coffee. And he'd go waltz around the building, he'd go up, sit in the stands for 5 or 10 minutes, and walk around, do this, do that. And about 30, 40 minutes later, he'd go, okay, I got it. And he'd pull us back, okay, it's not really do this, boom, 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 boom. And we just go out and follow his lead. And what did we learn from him? I think a lot of what you see done as Stone Cold Steve Austin, a lot of what Brian Pillman did as the loose cannon, everything the franchise did as the franchise was all predicated off what we learned with Ricky in that time. He was the consummate teacher. He was not off-put by that, like some of the guys would be, why do I got to teach the kids, right? He loved the spot. He knew it was job security for him. And for me, it's some of those, that 6, 7, 8 months that we were together are some of the greatest times for me in the business, because we had the same, neither of us partied. We both like to work out. We like to get a good night's sleep, things like that. When you're on the road with somebody like that, that very similar to you, It makes it a lot easier than somebody who's the exact opposite. It's like pulling teeth. So all three of those iconic characters later in wrestling all stem back. You can blame Ricky Steamboat for all three of them. So,
Now we had this sent in from Bill sent this one, Hardcore Homecoming program. The request is if you can put franchise Shane Douglas right here.
you got it. God, I see stuff said, but it still blows me away.
I know.
Blows me away, honestly. It's just crazy. You know, he was just a little couple words about him because he was,
Please. I was actually going to ask you at some point because, you guys were on the rise at a similar time, spent a lot of ring time with each other, if you could.
ton. He initially, you can tell when someone doesn't like you, and we always had great matches, but I could tell there was sort of some kind of a wall there, and I didn't want there to be. I certainly, there you go.
Check that out, Bill.
Spear anywhere? So.
No, it looks like that because of the barbed wire, but it looks great. Check that out, Bill.
But, when I was brought into the business by Dominic taught us, you call the person their shoot name. And so I would, do the same as Dominic had taught me. And one day I went up to the Sabu and I said, is there heat between us? Am I doing? Because if so, I'm not trying to, I apologize. And he said, first he said there was no heat. And then when I explained to him, he said, hey, he wouldn't look at me. You call me Terry. I said, well, that's your name. He said, no, I'm Sabu. I said, yeah, but you're going Sabu. And I got it. Like, he was living the gimmick. He was in character. Even though I was tactically, I'd known the other, people that were like that. And so never called him that again. And then he also he never let me do my shit. And I thought, what's he talking about? Every time I wrestle, he puts me through a table, gives me a triple jump moonsault, does this, does that, throws a chair at me. My son, the week after he died, had found a clip of me and Sabu, like highlight reel. And Sabu would do the Arabian face buster with steel chair on the top rope and he hit free to go, did that hurt? I said, no. Did that hurt? And I told him, I said, only the third punch. 1, 2, every third punch is a tater here. Sorry. 1, 2, sorry. Never once did he ever potato me with a chair, face buster, table, any of that stuff. He was taking the brunt of that on his body. And I'd never seen anybody sell the wrong move before. When I watched him do it, I was like, oh my, mind blowing. That makes so much sense. It's brilliant. But for me, working with him, all we had to do was set up whatever, the triple jump moonsault, set up the Arabian face buster, set up whatever. The fans are getting ready to blow because they know what he does, and cut him off. Each time you bring those fans up and down, up and down, up and down. And you got to be real careful. You can take it too long. If you get it right to that point, you can tell the fans won't take another second of this. I'd look at him in the ring or at some point, I'd say, hit your shit, big boy. And he wouldn't blow the roof off the place. Because he was so explosive, the fans knew what he could do. All I had to do was let's keep cutting him off, frantic, cut him off. And then sooner or later, blow the roof off the place. Once I explained that to him, we never had a problem again after that. I watched that last match, just my sidebar on this for a second. That night, my buddy Ned and Moose, my manager, had gone to the show. I was exhausted. It was the fourth day we were in Vegas. I was exhausted. He wouldn't have known I was there anyways. The place was sold out, and the dressing room was crammed with people. They came in later that night, and Moose first. I said, I wasn't. And Moose went, and pointed to Ned, and then went, dude, fucking Sabu was back. Great, fantastic. I figured it would be. But then that next week, my son showed me that video, and the next video that popped up was the match. I said, oh, you gotta want to watch that. I've been in the ring 1,000 times with Sabu. I am very well acquainted with what Sabu does not do, how he moves in the ring. And 4 or 5 minutes into it, with tears in my eyes, I told him, stop the video. I couldn't watch it anymore. It was heartbreaking. Why a man that's made that much money for our industry, you getting this splice in the hairs or whatever, he should have been better with his money, could have this, could have that. I would also argue Sabu probably made a pittance to what some of the other guys in the business at the same time made. This isn't a clarion call for anybody saying, you need to this or you have to that. But for a business that just sold for $9+ billion, You're going to tell me that a guy 60 years old should be in a barbed wire match like that? And anybody that gets, again, my medical school talk here, training, anybody that gets hit in the head, a 20-year-old, falls 5-6 feet onto concrete and busts their head up and gets blacked out, needs to go to the hospital. There could be an intracranial bleed. There could be 1,000 different things that go wrong. Why Sabu could not go to the ring or to the hospital because he had no insurance. And you show up at a hospital at 1 o'clock in the morning with a potential head injury, you're talking buku bucks.
Yeah.
Shame on our business, right? A man is potentially gone because of that. And I think if there's, in this world of equity and all this other stuff we talk about, does a guy who's not, a guy that's raised money, made millions of dollars for promoters over the better part of 4 decades, is he not or she not entitled to some basic safety net in the year 2025? I happen to think they are entitled. That goes for Kamal and all the other people we've seen and talked about. It's heartbreaking, you know. And Sabu, and I'm sure most of the fans that knew him or heard stories about him, Sabu was a damn good guy. And I'll give you a real quick note on him and Sandman that solidifies that. When we were booking Hardcore Homecoming in 2005, of course the Candido death pops in, which was horrible. But the very first people I booked on that show were Sabu, Sandman, and Funk. Because I knew that those were 3 must-haves. We had to have those 3 guys. A day or 2 later, I get a phone call from Sabu. And it's one of the heads up. Tommy, by the way, was working on booking Vince's show. What was it called? One Night Stand. And he said, Tommy's trying to undercut you. Offered them double the money to no-show our show. Now, why Tommy would do that, I mean, I'm sure he's beckoning to his lord and masters up there, but you're part of the family, bro. And, you know, you're going to kill the double payoff for these guys. And because those guys both, Sandman and Sabu, both said, no, we already gave Shane our word, that nixed it. That stopped it from that point forward, and everybody that wanted to work on both shows could work on both shows. That's a testament to the kind of man Sabu was, the kind of man that Sandman is, and I will be forever thankful to both of them for it.
As a reminder, guys, we'll be back on with Lady Frost tonight at approximately 8 o'clock, and then Francine and Todd Gordon, Todd is God, tomorrow, right around between 6 and 6:30 Eastern time, so that should be a lot of fun. Well, we talked a lot about Franny. What's a quick story about Todd, or a memory of Todd that you have, Shane?
Okay, this is one I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree on.
Okay.
The day that Eddie Gilbert quit, was fired, walked out of ECW, and Paul Heyman was made booker, Todd has insisted in his book that this never happened. We used to have production meetings back then, believe it or not, and I remember Randy Colley being there. He was sitting right across from me. Sitting right next to me was Doug Gilbert. There were a few other people around the table. Eddie was at the far end of the table. Paul was sitting right on the corner of the table. And 15, 20 minutes into the meeting, the door opens up. Todd walks in and leans over and starts whispering to Eddie, and they get him to walk out of the room. And they're gone for 20, 25, 30 minutes, and Todd comes back in and says, Eddie quit. He's no longer booking. Paul Heyman will be the new booker, and walk out. Now, Todd says it never happened. I very respectfully disagree, and I spoke to a third source who I asked them, what's your recollection of that day? What happened? And they went through and told the story pretty much the same as I told it. So either we're both crazy or one of us is crazy. So at any rate, for me, it was a win-win. I love Todd. Without Todd, there is no ECW. And, you know, like, you got to put all those things in. Anytime we're going to measure anybody, there's the online debate about Hogan, right? Every one of us is yin and yang. There's positive, negative, every one of us. And, they're all the same. But with Todd, his commitment to making that place work, it's pretty incredible when you stop and think about it because, again, Todd's wealthy, but Todd's not generationally wealthy like like Ted Turner or Tony Khan or whoever. The fact that we were able to keep that company floating, the fact that we were able to keep that building full every third week, I believe is what gave us the lifeblood to go on for another 3 weeks until the next show. At any point along that trajectory, that 7-year run, if that arena next month and 3 weeks from now, every 3 weeks I believe, if that building was half full instead of full, or 80% instead of full, could have very well spelled the end of the company at that time. So the fans, I hope they realized how important they were part of that equation while we always called them the sixth man on the bench. They really kept ECW floated and kept that lifeblood coming in. And it could never be done again. There's not a television executive out there that had the stones to put that on the air today, even though it would work. It was all the stars lined up right. The planet Earth was in the right place at the right time of the cosmos, however you want to put it, but all of the ingredients. The way I always ask people is this: if somebody had come up to you in 1993 or early 94 and said, hey, we're going to start a new wrestling promotion, we're going to use Francine Fournier, Jim Fullington, John Watson, Peterson Urchin, Tom Laughlin, Troy Martin. By the way, he's the lead heel. Terry Funk is going to be the lead babyface at 50-some years old. And going down that, Terry Brunk and all the rest, nobody ever heard of any of us. No, I don't think anybody would have invested in it. But look at the last quarter century of wrestling and the impact that little bingo hall company, that minor league Vince, put its stamp on the wrestling business. It used to be the UWF, the guys that the Rock and Roll Express, the Fantastics, Ted DiBiase,
Doc Gordy, Hacksaw,
I mean, it just go on and on, all great to craft, right? After that, ECW became that origin company where the characters were created, the guys, meaning the guys and the women, the boys, knew how to work and learned it there. It really is a testament to what we were able to pull off there, and the fact that we had those fans in every 3 weeks. Anything along that line, take any piece of that puzzle out, and I don't think ECW works. All of it was perfect. It was one of those things where only Sabu could do what Sabu did. Thankfully and luckily, only New Jack was crazy enough for the stuff New Jack did. Tom had taken the beatings that he did. Sandman portraying that character. For me, Sandman, I could never at that point figure out why Sandman was so over. And then him and he's down. It was like, how did I not see this all along? But the effort that was put forth by everybody in ECW, including the Bob Ortizes and Lexes and Kathy Fitzpatrick's, and you go on, Debbie Beaumont's, there were all these people working behind the stage to make that work, to make this little dream that we had to create this somewhat different company. Every piece of that puzzle was necessary to allow that to grow to what it became and leave the legacy that it did. So again, thank the fans, but man, the family is everything to us. I saw Bob not too long ago. It was Lex here. No, he just couldn't make it that night. But it's just always great to see those guys. I hadn't seen Bob at that point for 15 years or so, and just like I saw him yesterday. So good stuff. Good luck. A lifetime of great memories.
We're gonna end it on that note, Shane. Always a pleasure to get you on the Captain's Corner feed. God, thanks so much for supporting. With all the autographs you guys purchased, of course, throw the 3 up for the triple threat. As a reminder, we're back on tomorrow with Todd Gordon and Francine, and then later tonight with Lady Frost from the franchise. And Captain's Corner, we're going to end it with a cheers to the working man.